Okay, before we start, I just want to preface this video and say that this is a rant review, so if you actually like the Umbrella Academy Season 4 and don't want it spoiled for you by my gratuitous negativity, maybe you should skip this one. And also, it's great if you liked it, seriously, more power to you. This video, however, is made for those of us who are just salty, you know? Disappointed. Enraged even. And, oh boy, let me tell you, as a dedicated fan of the series, this final season truly awakened some part of myself that I didn't even realize existed. Frankly, I knew that I'm probably not going to like this season. My reaction to the trailer was lukewarm at best, which was already quite telling considering that they used the final countdown as the soundtrack, and you know, this song has this effect on people where they got all pumped up and excited, but yeah, no. Nothing for me, not this time. But my point is, I couldn't foresee just how annoyed I would be with the final product once it's out. I'm not usually the kind of person who expects the creators to listen to the audience and cater to their every need and expectation, but I think in this case it would have been much better if the crew actually bothered listening to what the viewers like. What I mean by that is the fact that the driving force behind the story has always been the bond between the siblings. And yeah, it was messy, complicated, and even straight up crazy at times, but that was just part of the charm, you know? This is what they should have focused on. This is the selling point of the entire show. We rooted for these dysfunctional assholes. We wanted them to, well, maybe not overcome their trauma, not completely, but at least connect more and realize that they need each other. Honestly, when I think about the fandom, I feel like a lot of people would be happy to just have chill episodes with the siblings hanging out together. And then, consistently, it feels like the show would give us just crumbs of interactions. And we were eating them up, like, sure, it's not much, but at least it's something. At least they are on speaking terms again. And yes, maybe it's a bit disappointing that Five never got to share how truly traumatizing his experience in the apocalypse was, or that the show never dug deeper and have Klaus share his past with Dave in more detail, but that's fine too. I mean, we can't exactly expect dysfunctional characters to not be dysfunctional. Except, these are all things that the fans wanted, you know? I know that a lot of people truly connected with these characters and their struggles, and that many of them didn't feel like many of their issues were ever properly explored or addressed. The show just kept creating even more conflicts and misunderstandings, never taking a moment to let the characters breathe and process what's happening. The problem is, if you keep doing that, eventually fans are going to get frustrated with the lack of answers. There is no show without a conflict, obviously, but if you keep just adding more and more conflict and never allow the characters to solve it or take a moment to rest, then remaining invested in the ever-rising stakes is bound to get hard and even impossible. What bothers me though is that instead of tying up the loose ends, instead of having the characters reconnect after years of misunderstandings and distance and spend more time all together, the writers decided to, you guessed it, add even more conflict to the mix. Conflict that feels not only unnecessary, but also actively goes against anything that the fans wanted. And here's where we enter the spoiler category of this video, so if you haven't watched the final season yet, it's your time to click off and do it. 3, 2, 1... Here we go. The thing I'm talking about is obviously the direction in which the writers took Five and Lila's relationship. It actually feels strangely personal to me because Five was consistently my favorite character through all 4 seasons, and I also really like Lila's addition, especially in the 2nd season. They had a really unique love-hate dynamic that I liked a lot, and she was an interesting character who understood his experience on a level that no one else did. And while I wasn't the biggest fan of her romantic relationship with Diego, I still considered it cute, and I understand why many fans found it appealing. It was already kinda weird when in season 3 we suddenly got a fight scene of all things with freshly bathed Lila and Five, whose actor Aidan Gallagher was still a teenager at the time. But you know, it's a silly, messy show. Of course the characters are doing silly and messy things in it. To be fair, Five fighting with a naked Lila was hardly the weirdest thing to happen in the show, even though I remember being a little uncomfortable with the scene at the time. However, there's a huge difference between Lila and Five having a clearly humorous and not so serious scene and them actually becoming a couple, or as close to being a couple as you can get, with playing house together and all that. Honestly, all of my thoughts about this unexpected romance can be summed up with a single sentence. It was unnecessary. And it baffles me really, because I remember seeing a sentence from an interview with Steve Blackman, the showrunner, who said that he did his best to satisfy everyone, including the comic readers. And I'm just... Steve, buddy, who would have wanted that? Who asked for this? Like, I guarantee you, if you ask anyone in the fandom what they think about this idea, you know what they would all say? Ew, no. What possessed you to think that it was a good idea? And don't get me wrong, I know where it's coming from. I know what they were trying to say by including it in the story. It's not me not understanding the message or me just hating the show for the sake of hating it. When I say that it was unnecessary, I truly mean it. I think not only could the same message be delivered better if they went in a different direction, but I also feel like it actively goes against what the fandom actually wanted. It feels like the creators didn't understand what the fans like about the show and what they expect from it. And not just in general, but on some fundamental level. Diego and Lila weren't a perfect couple by any means. In fact, it was straight up messed up considering how they met and that Lila knew who he was from the start. Not to mention any of season 3 or the way season 4 introduces them as struggling parents of 3 children who both feel like they are suffocating in this relationship. This was, from start to finish, a very messy romance. Which makes sense because they are both messed up, both grew up in highly unconventional households and were trained to be child soldiers. No one who watched the show or liked this pairing liked it because they are some kind of epitome of healthy communication. But they definitely had chemistry, and due to the trauma they both experienced, they could relate to each other. They understood what it's like to have neglectful parents who can never be pleased no matter how hard you try. They weren't perfect, not by a long shot, but they made sense. And again, I'm not a hardcore Diego-Lila fan. I would be happy if they ended up together, but I wouldn't cry if it didn't work out. But I know that there are some people who were truly invested in their relationship, and the show did a pretty good job making them work in seasons 2 and 3. In fact, it spent 2 seasons selling this ship to the audience and telling us that they are meant to be. And I actually liked their dynamic in the first 3 or 4 episodes of the final season. I think it was a very realistic representation of them as parents forced to live boring suburban lives. Both of them had a lot of unaddressed trauma and issues from the past. Both can be very immature. Of course, all of that was bound to cause issues. A time skip doesn't change that. But it's one thing to introduce realistic conflict and have the established couple try to navigate it together, and another thing completely to have them split up for a huge chunk of the season and make one of them cheat with the other's brother. Especially if that brother is Five freaking Hargreaves. Now, as a huge Five fan, it just doesn't feel like something he would do and then feel so little remorse over. And the show is trying so hard to frame it as an okay thing to do, constantly reminding us that it's been almost 7 years since Five and Lila got stuck on the subway that leads to different timelines, and they are just so exhausted trying to find their way back. They also try to justify it by using that, oh, the old man is tired, all he wants is to finally get some peace argument, but we are talking about the man who spent 45 years in the apocalypse. The same man who spent a lifetime in hell just to get to see his family again and save the world. Five has always been incredibly single-minded, and his experience in the apocalypse shaped him into who he is in the show. Season 4 portrayal of Five feels a lot like some kind of imposter pretending to be him, especially in the second part of the season. It doesn't feel believable for him. His entire life, all Five wanted was to be together with his family and prevent the apocalypse from happening. He sacrificed everything to get to this point, and I refuse to believe that he would throw all these years out the window and essentially start an affair with his brother's wife and mother of his 3 children. And no matter how hard the show tries to justify it by saying that it's been almost 7 years and they were giving up hope about coming home and reuniting with the rest of the family, I just don't buy it. If it was any character other than Five, then maybe, yes, I can understand it. I can see how being stuck in between timelines can break you and make you crave any kind of human contact and comfort. But not Five. It feels like it goes against everything his character was supposed to represent. And by the way, I'm not implying that Five is the morally superior character. We've seen him do horrible things throughout the show. We are straight up told that being an assassin is what he does best. But one thing that remained consistent through all of the seasons is that he loves his family. He cares about them to an unhealthy degree. he never gives up on them. And while he can hurt them if he thinks it's for the best, I think there are lines that he would never cross. This betrayal feels incredibly out of character for him, and trying to use that, "oh, it's been almost 7 years" excuse, it just feels almost insulting, and it retroactively makes some of the most emotional scenes from previous seasons feel incredibly hollow looking back at them now. Like the scene from season 1 when Five tells Allison that he would like to meet Claire one day, or how he assured Diego that he and Lila loved each other just a few episodes earlier. It cheapens these complicated but meaningful relationships in favor of a shallow romance that feels inauthentic to who these characters are as people. And I genuinely don't know why the writers thought that it would be a good idea. And even if you disagree and argue that it did make sense for Five to betray Diego like that, they did it way too far into the season. It didn't feel organic or like a natural progression for the characters. Five and Lila already had so much baggage with the commission and him being responsible for her parents' deaths. They didn't need more than that. They were a great duo with a lot of fun scenes and a good dynamic. I also can't be the only person who felt like there was no chemistry between them, at least not in a romantic sense of this word. Before, they had more of an enemies turned besties dynamic that worked really well for them. They understood each other on a level that no one else could, and it was nice to see them open up more about what they've been through. There was no need to ruin it with an unexpected romantic subplot that no one asked for. Not only that, but it also doesn't add much in terms of world building or the final conflict faced by the siblings. You could remove this whole part from the show and it wouldn't change much really. At this point we already knew how the subway works and what it does. This entire section of the season could have been used addressing other plot points and giving us some much more needed character interactions. The precious time that the writers already didn't have much of with the final season being shortened and the show cancelled, it just feels wasted on this weird conflict that added nothing but confusion and heartbreak. And there's also the additional issue of, well, the age difference. While Aidan Gallagher was an adult by the time these scenes were filmed, there are a few issues that I have with this unexpected romance. One, even though he's 20 by the time when I'm recording this video, you still have to remember that Ritu Arya, who played Lila, is 35. It's a 15 years difference in age and maturity levels, and if nothing else, it feels weird to watch a grown woman kiss someone who's been an adult for all of 5 minutes. 2. Even though Five looks young due to his actor's age, in the show the character is supposed to be well into his 50s. And with the extra 6 years caused by the time skip and another 6 years, 5 months and 2 days caused by the subway shenanigans, it's just weird, okay? I don't feel like I have to elaborate on that one. I'm pretty sure most of you can understand what I'm trying to say. And 3. Even though Aidan Gallagher is an adult, he was still a teenager when the season was being filmed. More than that, he was a minor through the majority of the show's existence. Even though Five was 58 in season 1, the actor was only 15, and his character was supposed to be around 13 years old, at least as far as his physical age. Like I said, that already makes him kissing a much older fellow actor a little weird, but you also have to remember that Aidan Gallagher has a very big fan base, made up mostly of teenage girls who already sexualize him a lot across different social media platforms. I don't think I'm the only person who's just a little concerned that the second they felt like the actor is old enough, they had to push him into a romantic subplot. Again, it just feels disturbing, you know, with all that context and everything. And the thing is, the writers knew how weird it's going to be for the audience. They must have known, right? Any of these things on its own was guaranteed to make some people uncomfortable, but all of these combined, I have no idea what they were thinking or how no one stopped it from happening. Literally the last thing Five's character needed was a romance. I also feel like I have to make it clear that I have nothing against the actors. Both Aidan Gallagher and Ritu Arya did a phenomenal job and gave strong performances. My problem lies with the writers and choices made by the showrunners, not with any of the actors and actresses. In the end, I don't know where any of it leaves us. I'm disappointed, and it seems to be the most common feeling among people who have finished the show so far. The final season certainly doesn't have the same charm that the first 2 seasons had. While season 3 was weak in comparison with the first 2, it still had some compelling scenes and the excuse of being filmed during the pandemic. Season 4 though, well, I don't want to say that it spit in its fans' faces, but it kind of feels like that, yeah. It's a shame because I was looking forward to the final season, hoping that it would help me remember why I used to love it so much. But instead, I could barely finish the last 20 minutes of the show, and in the end, I just felt nothing. Nothing except disappointment. And it's always sad when it happens, when you see the thing you used to love be turned into something that just makes you meh. I was okay knowing that I probably won't love this season, but like I said, this one decision to make Lila and Five a thing really makes me look at those meaningful scenes from the previous seasons and feel like I've been robbed in a way. Just a little bit, but still. It feels like such a huge disservice to the characters, and to know how it ends and specifically how Five and Diego never get to reconcile, this is not the ending that I wanted. I doubt that it's an ending that anyone wanted. Because I knew that the Umbrella Academy may not have a good ending, at least not in a traditional sense. But at the same time, I thought that the writers understood the assignment, and that the family bonds and sibling relationships is what made people love this show so much in the first place. I thought that even if we get a sad ending, then at least we'll get to see them get closure together, as a family. And instead, one of the most important of these bonds was destroyed beyond repair at the very last moment. I don't understand how you can fail so badly as a writer. I don't know who was supposed to be happy with this development. I genuinely can't imagine that there are any people who genuinely like this subplot and how it ended. I'm really interested in hearing what you guys thought about this season and the decision to end it like that. As always, I look forward to reading your comments. I'm curious if any of you maybe see any silver lining here. If yes, then please let me know. And if not, well, consider my comment section as a place to rant and let it all out, you know? Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe, and see you next time!